Alyssa Rivera stared at the contract in her trembling hands, the blue ink still wet from her signature. The weight of what she had just agreed to pressed against her chest like a stone. But when she looked up at Damian Pierce's cold gray eyes, she felt nothing but resolve. "The transfer will be completed within 24 hours, he said, sliding the document into a leather folder. His voice carried no emotion, no acknowledgement of what had just transpired between them. "The hospital in Switzerland has been contacted. They're expecting Ethan tomorrow." She nodded, unable to trust her voice. 6 months ago, she had been nobody. A temp worker, invisible to everyone around her, scraping by on coffee shop wages and hope. Now she sat in the most powerful office in Chicago. Having just negotiated away her innocence for $10 million, the memory of that rainy night still haunted her. The sound of screeching tires, the sight of the overturned minivan, the dying woman's desperate plea, "Save him." Those 2 words had changed everything. Ethan wasn't her blood, wasn't even legally hers. But the moment she had held his small hand in that hospital room, she had become his guardian in every way that mattered. "There's one more thing." Damian's voice cut through her thoughts. He stood from his chair and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "The arrangement we discussed tonight." Heat flooded her cheeks. She had known this moment would come, had prepared herself for it during the sleepless nights since Ethan's collapse. But knowing and experiencing were vastly different things. "I understand," she managed. He turned to face her, and for a fleeting moment something flickered across his features. Regret? Curiosity? It was gone before she could identify it. "My penthouse in Dorman will be expecting you." Alyssa stood on unsteady legs, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Mr. Pierce, I need you to know that I'm doing this for him. Only for him. I wouldn't expect anything else, Miss Rivera." As she reached the door, his voice stopped her.
"Alyssa."
It was the first time he had used her first name. The boy. "What's his real story?" She turned back, meeting his gaze directly. "I found him in a car accident. His mother died asking me to save him. That's all I know. And it's all that matters." Something shifted in Damian's expression, so subtle she almost missed it. "And you've been caring for him alone? No family? No support?" "I'm all he has, and he's all I have." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Then Damian's mask slipped back into place. 9 o'clock, Miss Rivera. Don't be late." Alyssa left his office with her heart pounding and her future irrevocably altered. She had 8 hours to prepare for a night that would save Ethan's life and forever change her own. As the elevator descended, she pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and whispered a prayer for forgiveness. She was about to cross a line she never imagined crossing, but love demanded sacrifices. Sometimes those sacrifices came with a price that money couldn't measure. The doors opened to the bustling lobby, and Alyssa stepped out into her old life one last time. Tonight, everything would change. The penthouse elevator climbed 47 floors in silence. Alyssa watched the numbers tick by, each one bringing her closer to a moment she couldn't take back. Reflections stared back from the polished doors, pale skin, dark circles under her eyes, and a simple black dress she had borrowed from her neighbor. She had spent the afternoon at the hospital, holding Ethan's hand while he slept. His breathing was shallow, his lips tinged blue despite the oxygen mask. The doctors had been blunt about his timeline. Without the surgery, he had weeks, maybe days. "I'm going to fix this, baby," she had whispered against his forehead. "I promise. Now." As the elevator chimed softly and the door slid open, she stepped into Damian Pierce's private world. The penthouse was a study in controlled elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Lake Michigan, while minimalist furniture and expensive art created an atmosphere of cold sophistication. Damian stood by the windows, still wearing his business suit but with his tie loosened. He didn't turn when she entered. "You came," he said simply. "Did you think I wouldn't?" He finally faced her, and she was struck by how different he looked in this space. Less intimidating, more human. But his eyes still held that calculating coldness. That made her shiver. "Drink." He gestured to a bar cart, laden with crystal decanters. "I don't drink." "Of course you don't." There was something that might have been amusement in his voice. He poured himself 2 fingers of amber liquid and took a slow sip. "Tell me about yourself, Alyssa Rivera." The question caught her off guard. "That wasn't part of our arrangement. Humor me." "We have time," she remained, standing near the elevator, maintaining distance between them. "There's nothing interesting to tell. I grew up in foster care, went to college on scholarships, moved here for work. That's it. And yet you risked everything for a child who isn't yours. He is mine." The words came out fiercer than she intended, not by blood, but in every way that counts. Damian set down his glass and moved closer, his steps deliberate and measured. "You fascinate me, Miss Rivera." Most people would have handed the boy over to the state and walked away. Most people aren't me. Stopped just arm's length away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. No, they're not. The tension in the room was suffocating. Alyssa forced herself to meet his gaze, to not show the fear and anticipation warring inside her. "The money has been transferred," Damian said quietly. "The hospital confirmed receipt an hour ago. Ethan's surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning." Relief flooded through her so suddenly her knees nearly buckled. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." His hand reached up to cup her cheek, thumb tracing her jawline with unexpected gentleness. "Are you certain about this, Alyssa? Once we cross this line, there's no going back." The question hung in the air between them. She could leave. The money was already transferred. Ethan was safe. But she had given her word, signed the contract, and something in Damian's eyes told her he needed this as much as she needed to honor their agreement. "I'm certain," she whispered. His other hand found her waist, drawing her closer until there was no space between them. "Then let me make something clear," he murmured against her ear. "This isn't just a transaction for me anymore." Before she could process his words, his lips found hers. The kiss was nothing like she had expected, not demanding or harsh, but searching, almost desperate. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Damian," she began, but he silenced her with another kiss, deeper this time. "Don't think," he whispered against her lips. "Just feel." And for the first time in months, Alyssa let herself do exactly that. She let herself forget about hospital bills and dying mothers and impossible choices. For tonight, she was just a woman in the arms of a man who looked at her like she was the most precious thing he had ever seen. Whatever came next, whatever consequences this night would bring, she would face them tomorrow. Night belonged to them. Alyssa woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the scent of expensive cologne on Egyptian cotton sheets. For a moment, she forgot where she was, why she was there. Then reality crashed back with the force of a sledgehammer. The space beside her was empty, the sheets cold. Damian was gone. She sat up slowly, gathering the sheet around her naked body, and found a note on the nightstand written in his precise handwriting. "Car is waiting downstairs. The pilot has been instructed to take you directly to Switzerland. Ethan's surgery begins in 6 hours. Her heart lurched. While she had been sleeping in silk sheets, Ethan had been prepped for the most important surgery of his young life. She dressed quickly in yesterday's clothes and found fresh coffee and croissants waiting in the kitchen, along with the overnight bag packed with clothes in her exact size. A chill ran down her spine. How did he know her measurements? How long had he been planning this? The ride to the private airfield passed in a blur. Questions she should have asked the night before now bombarded her mind. Who was Damian Pierce really? Why had he agreed to help her? And why did their arrangement feel like something far more complex than a simple transaction? Her phone buzzed. With a message from an unknown number. "Flight time is 3 hours. Use it to rest. You'll need your strength for what comes next." The private jet was more luxurious than anything she had ever imagined. Chicago disappeared beneath the clouds. Alyssa tried to process what had happened. The night with Damian hadn't been what she expected. There had been tenderness, passion, moments when he looked at her like she was a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve. But now, in the harsh light of day, she wondered if she had imagined it all. The hospital in Switzerland was a monument to medical excellence. Dr. Hoffman, the surgeon, greeted her personally and assured her that Ethan was in the best possible hands. She was allowed to see him briefly before the surgery, and her heart broke at how small he looked, surrounded by machines and monitors. "Mommy's here, baby," she whispered, stroking his hair. "You're going to be okay. I promise." The surgery took 11 hours. Alyssa paced the waiting room, drank terrible coffee, and ignored the messages piling up on her phone. Most were from work, wondering where she was. One was from her landlord about overdue rent, but several were from that same unknown number. "How is he? The surgical team is the best in the world." "You're not alone in this," she almost responded to the last one, but something held her back. The night they had shared felt like a dream. Now, beautiful but unreal. Men like Damian Pierce didn't fall for women like her. Whatever she thought she had seen in his eyes had been her imagination working overtime. Dr. Hoffman emerged from surgery looking exhausted but triumphant. "The procedure was successful," he announced. "Ethan's heart is strong. He'll make a full recovery." Alyssa collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. All the fear, the desperation, the impossible choices of the past months finally released in a flood of relief. Her phone buzzed again. "I know he made it through. I told you he was strong." This time she responded. "How do you know?" The reply came immediately. "Because he has you fighting for him, and you don't give up on the people you love." Something in those words made her chest tighten. She started to type another message, but a nurse appeared to tell her Ethan was asking for her. She spent the next 3 days at his bedside, watching color return to his cheeks, hearing his laugh for the first time in months. The doctors were amazed by his recovery. Every day brought good news, each milestone a victory she had never dared hope for. But even in her joy, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching over them. Flowers appeared in Ethan's room with no card. His favorite toys mysteriously showed up on his bedside table. When she asked the nurses, they claimed ignorance. On the 4th day, as she was helping Ethan with breakfast, her phone rang. The caller ID simply said D. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Hello, Alyssa." His voice was exactly as she remembered, deep and controlled, but with an underlying warmth that made her pulse quicken. "How did you know he was okay?" "Have my ways. How are you holding up?" The simple question nearly undid her. No one had asked her that in months. "I'm fine." "Ethan is everything that matters." "That's not what I asked." She stepped into the hallway, away from little ears. "Why are you calling Damian?" "Because our arrangement isn't over." Her blood chilled.
Ow.
The money was transferred. "The surgery is done. We had a deal. We did. But there's something you don't know. Something I should have told you before you signed that contract." "What are you talking about?" His silence stretched so long she wondered if the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, vulnerable. "Ethan isn't a random child, Alyssa. And neither are you." The phone slipped from Alyssa's numb fingers, clattering to the hospital floor. She stared at it as if it were a snake that had just bitten her. Ethan's voice called from behind the door, asking if she was okay, but she couldn't form words. What did Damian mean? How could Ethan not be random? How could she not be? She retrieved the phone with shaking hands. The line was still open. "Explain now." Her voice came out as a whisper, not over the phone. "You need to come back to Chicago. I'm not leaving Ethan. Bring him. He's cleared for travel in 48 hours, and there are things he needs to know too." "Damian, if this is some kind of game, this isn't a game, Alyssa. This is about family. It's about secrets that have been buried for 5 years. About why a dying woman chose you specifically to save her son." The world tilted sideways. "What are you saying? I'm saying that car accident wasn't random? That woman knew exactly who you were when she put Ethan in your arms. And I've known who you both were since the day you walked into my elevator." Alyssa slumped against the wall, her legs unable to support her weight. "That's impossible. Come home, Alyssa. Let me show you the truth." The line went dead. 2 days later, she sat in Damian's office once again, but everything was different now. Ethan played quietly in the corner with toys that had appeared as if by magic, His color finally returned to normal. The surgery scars were hidden beneath his favorite dinosaur shirt, and his smile was brighter than she'd seen in months. But Alyssa couldn't share in his joy. Not yet. Not until she understood what web she had stumbled into. Damian entered carrying a thick manila folder. His usual composed demeanor cracked with something she couldn't identify. Guilt? Fear? Regret. "Before I show you this," he said, settling behind his desk, "I need you to know that everything I did to protect you both." From what? He opened the folder and withdrew a photograph. It was old, slightly faded, but the faces were unmistakable. A younger Damian stood beside a beautiful woman with dark hair and gentle eyes. She was holding a baby. Alyssa's breath caught. The woman was older in the photo, but there was no mistaking those features. That's her, Ethan's mother. Her name was Sarah Pierce. She was my sister. The room spun. "Your sister?" "My half-sister, actually. Same father, different mothers. She fell in love with someone our father didn't approve of, someone he considered beneath our family's standards. When she got pregnant, he disowned her, cut her off completely." Damian's voice was tight with old anger. "I was away at college, building the early foundations of the company. I didn't know about her situation until it was too late." Alyssa stared at the photograph, pieces of an impossible puzzle clicking into place. "Ethan is your nephew." "Yes, but there's more." He pulled out another document, this one bearing official seals and legal stamps. "Sarah lived under an assumed name for years, trying to stay hidden from our father's reach. When Ethan was diagnosed with his heart condition as an infant, she knew she needed help, but she was terrified to come to me directly. She thought our father might still have influence, might try to take Ethan away from her. So she found me." Alyssa's voice was barely audible. "She found you because of this." He handed her another photograph, this one even older. It showed two young girls, maybe 8 and 10 years old, playing in a backyard. One had Sarah's gentle features, the other looked exactly like Alyssa. "I don't understand. The girl on the left is Sarah, the one on the right is your mother, Alyssa Rivera. They were best friends at the group home where they both lived before aging out of foster care." Alyssa's world collapsed entirely. "My mother knew Sarah. They stayed close for years until Alyssa died in that factory accident when you were 12. Sarah never forgot her promise to look after Alyssa's daughter if anything ever happened. She'd been watching over you from a distance for years." "Watching over me?" Damian pulled out a bank statement with her name on it. "Got you into college?" "Sarah anonymously funded it." "The job at my company?" "She recommended you, though she made sure it looked random." "She was planning to approach you directly when Ethan got sicker, but then she died in that car accident." Alyssa's voice cracked. It wasn't an accident. His words hit like physical blows. Sarah was being followed. Our father had hired investigators to find her, to find Ethan. When she realized they were closing in, she tried to run. The crash happened because she was trying to protect her son from a man who would have taken him away from her and hidden him in boarding schools, in institutions. Your father killed her? As good as in, when she was dying, bleeding out in that wreck, she saw you running toward the car and knew it was fate. The daughter of her best friend, the girl she'd been protecting for years, was there to save her. Son. Ethan's laughter from the corner seemed to mock the gravity of their conversation. Alyssa watched him play, this little boy who wasn't just a random child she'd saved, but family she'd never known she had. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because my father is still alive, still dangerous, still searching for Ethan." Damian leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. "The night we spent together wasn't just about the money, Alyssa. It was about binding you to me legally, making you untouchable." He hesitated. "As your what? As my wife?" The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Alyssa stared at Damian, certain she had misheard. "What did you just say?" Pulled the final document from the folder. It was the contract she had signed that night in his office, but now she could see what she had been too desperate to notice before. Mixed within the financial terms and confidentiality clauses was a marriage agreement. Written in complex legal language that had sailed over her head in her desperation. You married me. Voice was hollow. I protected you, both of you. Damian stood and walked to where Ethan was playing. The little boy looked up with a bright smile, and Damian's entire demeanor softened. Hello, buddy. How are you feeling? Good. Look, I built a castle. Ethan held up his creation of blocks and toy knights. That's amazing. Just like the one your mom used to build. Ethan's eyes widened. You knew my first mommy? Alyssa's heart clenched as Damian knelt down to Ethan's level. I did. She was my sister. That makes you my nephew, and it makes Alyssa your new mommy and my wife. We're a family now, really. Ethan looked between them with pure joy. Does that mean I don't have to go back to the hospital? Never again, little man. You're completely healthy now. Ethan launched himself into Damian's arms, and Alyssa watched in amazement as this cold, calculating businessman melted completely, holding the boy like he was the most precious thing in the world. I can't believe this, she whispered. You manipulated everything. The job, the meeting, the contract. I saved your life, Damian said firmly, still holding Ethan. My father's investigators found the apartment where you and Ethan were living 3 days after the surgery. If you hadn't been under my protection, under the Pierce family name, they would have taken him. And you couldn't have just told me the truth. Would you have believed me? Would you have trusted me? He set Ethan down and walked back to her. You were prepared to sacrifice everything for a child you thought was a stranger. I knew if you understood he was family, if you knew about the danger, you would have run. And running would have gotten you both killed. Alyssa sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all. So what now? We're married? We're supposed to just play happy family? We're a family, the three of us. Yes, we're married. Legally and completely. He paused, something vulnerable flickering in his expression. But that doesn't have to mean anything you don't want it to mean. What's that supposed to mean? It means that night we shared, it wasn't just physical for me, Alyssa. It wasn't just part of the arrangement. I've been watching over you for years. Following Sarah's updates, seeing how you struggled and survived and never gave up. I've been half in love with you since before we ever met. Her breath caught. What? Damian, you don't have to feel anything for me. The marriage protects you both, gives Ethan a stable home and a family name that no one will dare challenge. You can have your own room, your own life. I'll give you anything you want, including distance, if that's what you need. Ethan had wandered. Over during their conversation, and now he tugged on Alyssa's sleeve. Are you sad, Mommy? She looked down at his concerned little face, then at Damian, who was watching her with carefully guarded hope. The past week had turned her entire world upside down. Everything she thought she knew about her life, about fate, about love, had been rebuilt from the ground up. I'm not sad, baby, she said softly. I'm just surprised. Good surprised or bad surprised? She considered the question seriously. Here was a man who had moved heaven and earth to protect her and Ethan, who had given them both a future, family, a life they never could have imagined, who had looked at her like she was precious from the very beginning, even when she couldn't see it herself. A good surprised, she decided. Damian's entire body seemed to exhale in relief. Does this mean Uncle Damian gets to stay? Ethan asked hopefully. Alyssa looked at her husband, this complicated, powerful man who had orchestrated their entire lives out of love and protection. Yeah, baby. Uncle Damian gets to stay. And you're both going to take care of me forever? Forever and always, Damian promised, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan clapped his hands together. This is the best surprise ever, said the little boy. Returned to his toys, Damian moved closer to Alyssa. I know this isn't how most marriages begin, he said quietly. I know you have every right to hate me for the deception. But I want you to know that everything I did, every choice I made, was because I love you both. You're my family now, the only family that matters. Alyssa studied his face, seeing past the cold exterior to the man underneath. The man who had saved them, protected them, loved them before they even knew they needed saving. This is going to take some getting used to, she admitted. We have time. All the time in the world. She looked around the office that had once terrified her, at the man who had once seemed untouchable, at the little boy who had brought them all together through tragedy and love and impossible circumstances. Ask me in a year if I'm happy with this arrangement, she said with the ghost of a smile. Is that a challenge, Mrs. Pierce? The name sent a thrill through her that she wasn't quite ready to examine. Maybe it is, Mr. Pierce. He leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. A promise. In a beginning, all at once. Challenge accepted. As the Chicago sun set through the windows of their new life together, Alyssa realized that sometimes the most precious things came disguised as impossible choices. Sometimes love arrived through the back door, dressed as sacrifice and necessity. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most powerful men in the world turned out to be the gentlest fathers and the most devoted husbands. She had signed that contract to save Ethan's life. She had never expected it to save her own. The end. Like this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe for more emotional tales. And share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. And we love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.